Welcome back to Small Caps, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kerry Stevenson, and today I've asked Dr. Paul Gavin, he's the CEO of Avecho Biotechnology, to come on and have a chat to us. Flying a little bit under the radar, the ones I really like to share with you, they're a biotech company, but they're focused on the cannabinoid, the CBD market, not Central Business District. It's that cannabis oil stuff. But this is a big market. They're coming into a phase 3 trial. It's a really interesting inflection point for this company. Let's understand it a bit more and find out where the opportunities lie. Paul, great to see you. Thanks for joining me on Small Caps today.
No, thanks for having me, Kerry.
First up, you and I, this is the first time we've had a conversation, so let's introduce you to all of our community, who you are, what you're up to.
Well, hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Paul Gavin. I am the CEO of Avecho Biotechnology, as Kerry said. Avecho's biotech, so we've been a biotech company for the last 20 years. We aren't native to medicinal cannabis. We've been doing drug development and clinical trials and formulations for a long period of time. The last 3 years have really seen us look at medicinal cannabis and specifically the pharmaceutical version of those and identify a whole lot of deficiencies both in the space and in the products, and they're deficiencies that we've been doing routinely for the last 20 years. So it's been a focus since really 2019.
You said deficiencies. What are the deficiencies in the medicinal cannabis space?
Drug development knowledge, realistically. So, I mean, we've been saying right since the start, since medicinal cannabis first became legalized in Australia, that it's going to become a drug. You are going to have to develop it like a medicine. It is not special. You are going to have to subject it to the same truths that you do any other pharmaceutical. Does it work? Is it safe? Can it be manufactured? Can you put it into a pharmaceutically acceptable dosage form? I guess the problem that we've had in Australia for so long is that the medicinal cannabis space has operated through TGA exclusions, so SASB, avenues that unregistered medicines typically use. And because it's an unregistered medicine, you don't have to do the normal drug development steps prior to selling it. And so if you don't have to invest in clinical trials to sell it, why would you ever do clinical trials? But that's our background. And so we saw that as we saw the fact that no one else was doing it as a real advantage for us because we do clinical trials in our sleep.
Yeah, but what I want to know is if it's out there already and people are taking it and doing it, why spend the money on the clinical trials? What's the advantage of going through that?
There's a few advantages, really. So despite it being a really growing industry and market in Australia, there are still a whole lot of GPs that have real trouble prescribing it. They don't believe that there's sufficient data to support its efficacy. They don't know what indications they can prescribe it for. We've had patients on some of our clinical trials that have tried to maintain using the products in therapy, and they've spent, $500 to $600 going through GPs one by one, trying to find people that would actually prescribe it. And I have sympathy for the GPs. I mean, the GPs are there to look out for their patients and prescribe them things that have been proven to work. And when you haven't done the work to prove that cannabis works for specific indications, it's really difficult for a GP to look in the mirror and prescribe it. So that's the first piece. And the second piece is that, if you do the work and you get it registered with the TGA and it becomes an official, approved medicine, then suddenly you get access to the normal prescribing pathways. There's an over-the-counter opportunity at the moment that we're running through, which means that people can buy the product direct from the chemist, and it come with a product label. Drug product label tells you how to take it, when to take it, what you can expect to feel, what indications it works for. And so it becomes a much more kosher medicine that people can prescribe and take with confidence.
That's interesting. So are you guys the only ones doing this at the moment, going through this sort of phase 3 and going through all that approvals, or are others doing it as well?
No, there are others doing it as well. So, when the TGA first announced this, you've got to understand why the TGA announced this. So the TGA does not like this unregistered medicinal cannabis industry. It's exactly because you don't have to do all the normal steps that you would normally do for a drug.
Okay.
And so the TGA dangled this big fat carrot in front of all of us, which was, if we do the work, if we do the clinical trials, if we do normal drug development and get it registered, it can be an over-the-counter medicine. So you don't have to go to your GP and get a prescription. You can walk into any chemist in the country, all 5,700 of them, and buy CBD straight from the pharmacist. And so suddenly you've got access to 26 million people that all they have to do is walk into the pharmacy. And so when the TGA first announced it, everyone in Australia, the medicinal cannabis companies jumped up and said, "This is awesome. We're all going to have CBD on the market in the chemists in the next 5 minutes." And then very quickly, most of them tapped out and realized that drug development is hard, it's expensive, it takes a lot of time, and you need specific expertise in order to do it. And so really there's 5 or 6 of us left that are really shooting for this kind of registration.
So where are you guys at in that process? What have you done to date? What are the milestones that you've hit? And I guess then we'll go into what's the future, like where are you going next?
Sure. So, I mean, we recognized the reason why we looked at cannabis to start is because one of the problems with cannabis is that it has really poor absorption. So of the, you might pay $200 for your medicinal cannabis. Of that cannabis, you're only going to absorb 3 to 10%, and the rest you're just going to metabolize and excrete. So it's a complete waste.
Wow.
So, yeah, in 2019, we started optimizing products to increase absorption. We did it across 2 countries, Australia and Denmark. We went through 2 animal models to show the increase in absorption. We then went to Catalent in the US that turned our oil into a soft gel capsule. So it's a pharmaceutical soft gel capsule built specifically for this TGA opportunity. We've done our initial human testing to characterize absorption, which was last year. And we've spent the bulk of this year building our phase 3 clinical trial, where I'm expecting ethics approval any minute. So it might be next week, it might be the week after. And our phase 3 protocol is big. It's big, it's rigorous. When you say it's big, what do you mean? Big in the numbers of people going through the phase 3 trial, big in terms of... Big in everything. It's big in the number of people. So it'll be 500 odd people. It's big in the number, in the amount of assessments we're doing and the rigor and all the endpoints. The real danger with this over-the-counter opportunity is that an over-the-counter medicine in Australia, it's only good for a certain number of indications. So it can't be cancer. It can't be an indication that's so serious that you need medical intervention, irrespective of how safe the drug is. So it has to be things that you can self-diagnose, like, acute pain or insomnia or anxiety or that's right. Some of these kind of things that you can walk into a chemist, self-diagnose, and then the drug has to have a sort of commensurate safety profile. But the problem with that is that Australia is the only agency in the world, the TGA, that has put this S3 over-the-counter opportunity in play. And so there's a real danger that when you build this phase 3 trial, that you water down the clinical indication to suit the TGA and get it sort of approved as cheaply and easily as you can. Right. But you water it down so much that the indication and the trial that you've got are of no interest to the FDA or the Europeans, remembering they don't have this over-the-counter opportunity. So we've built our trial to make the FDA and the Europeans happy. In doing so, it'll 100% increase the chances that the TGA will accept it. But it's got a whole...
Again, so just to say that because you're being more rigorous, because you're looking sort of European and FDA, not just TGA, that means that the TGA, even that it's as rigorous, but it just means you're going that much more in depth. Would I be right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the risk with the TGA, despite what everyone's saying, is that the TGA as a regulatory agency is not used to being the first agency that sees a medicine. So drugs are usually approved in the US and or Europe and or Japan, and the TGA sees the drug afterwards with the knowledge that another regulatory agency has already deemed it to be safe and effective. And likewise, it's very rare that a medication would ever go straight into approval as an over-the-counter medicine. It's usually a prescription product, and then after it's approved as a prescription product, over many years, it then becomes down scheduled to be an over-the-counter medicine. So the TGA, the poor TGA, are going to be the first regulatory agency on the planet assessing an over-the-counter CBD product for sleep or anxiety or whatever it is. And they are going to have to err on the side of caution. So you should do everything you can to build the most rigorous trial and program that you can to not give them any excuse to say no.
Okay, got it. So what makes yours, because you mentioned that there's some other people doing it for 4 or 5, a lot of them have dropped out, but there's 4 or 5 of you that are still, if you like, in the race. What makes Avecho Biotech's product different from others?
Well, the product, we've all got slightly different products. So, I mean, we started building ours back in 2019. I mean, and we started sort of really talking to the market about increased bioavailability and the fact that you really need to increase the absorption. None of these other guys were doing that at the time. They're all doing it now. But yeah, this product is essentially very similar to a lot of products that we've built over the years. Patent protection, increased absorption. We've gone through all the development pathways that we have for our other medicines. And as I just say, that the phase 3 that we've built, it has a lot of bells and whistles to it. As I say, many more than some of the others that we've seen in the space. It's not to say at all that they can't get approval. 100% they definitely could. But yeah, our trial, if any trial has A, the chance of getting a successful phase 3 outcome, and B, getting successful TGA approval, it'll be this one.
So what are the next steps to get that TGA approval? How long is it going to take? When do you start? Talk us through the steps.
So, yeah, we get ethics approval, which hopefully will be very soon. In parallel, we've been working with the contract manufacturers overseas to manufacture the clinical supply. We're hoping that'll be ready to be dosing early next year, but we don't yet have the slots. Dosing realistically, depending on the number of sites that we open, will take the majority of next year. We intend to open a lot of sites to maximize the recruitment rate.
When you say open a lot of sites, are you saying people come in, they take...
So essentially we'll probably have about 10 clinical sites around Australia. So, you know, you recruit your patients and they'll turn up to these sites for the conduct of the study. So that's where they'll get their assessment to determine whether they're eligible to be on study, and they'll get their study medication and they'll get assessed, and they'll pop in regularly over the course of the trial to be assessed for a number of parameters. And so, yeah, about 10 sites around Australia. So obviously, the more sites you open, the more access to different geographies you have, and the more patients you can bring in onto your study per week.
You said all next year will be the trials?
Yeah, I imagine the thing about our trial, we have an interim analysis. So although we'll end up dosing about 500 people across 3 treatment groups, we will dose about 100 per treatment group, and then we'll do an interim analysis. So essentially, the statisticians will sit down, look at the data generated to date, and they'll do a powering calculation, which will essentially tell us how many more patients we need on the study to get hopefully a successful outcome. Or it'll, as part of that analysis as well, they'll do a futility assessment, which will say essentially, CBD doesn't work for sleep, fail early, fail cheap, go home.
But it does work for something else, maybe. I want to go into the investment side of it, if you like. And one of the ones that pricked my ear was patent. Have you got worldwide patent on your particular technology for this CBD?
Yeah, so we've got a very, very broad, very, very expensive patent portfolio that obviously we've been running with over many years that covers the manufacture of our proprietary excipient, our TPM, all the way through different formulations, different compositions, with specific reference to this CBD capsule that we've got. As part of the development, we built a really bespoke ratio of our ingredient to CBD to a couple of other things, and that became the focus of brand new patents. So they were submitted a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. They're now in PCT phase. They've gone through their international search reports, which looked really good. So we would expect them to be going into grant next year in a whole lot of territories around the world.
So right now it's patent pending, is it?
Oh, that's just that one formulation is patent pending, but there's already other patents that we have that protect the product. So it's 100% covered. This new IP is really about buying yourself another 20 years of patent coverage.
All right. How big is this market, do you think?
Oh, I mean, it's huge. I mean, Australia is a bit of an outlier here. I mean, again, given our biotech background, no one ever develops drugs specifically for Australia. I mean, why would you? It's such a small market, small population. You always focus on the US. They love their drugs. But in Oz, yeah, this is the first time that developing something for the Australian market makes sense because, as I say, 26 million people can just wander into the chemist and buy your product. And in Australia alone, I mean, even we were joking beforehand. I mean, for insomnia, everyone's your target audience. No one's sleeping. No one's sleeping.
You're right, Paul. I'm not sleeping.
That's right. So, I mean, there's a couple of research reports out there with Deloitte's, which were coincidentally written by a couple of the scientific advisors on our trial. It says like 40% of Australians aren't sleeping, 60% of them of Australia are experiencing poor sleep 3 to 4 times a week. We're spending $250 million on sleep medication that either doesn't work that well or gives you that chemical hangover the next day. And it's costing the Australian economy about $19 billion a year. And that's just Oz. So we know around the world, the sleep market, it's billions of dollars. So we focus for Oz. We do all the work to get this registered for insomnia, and then we take it and we license it to Big Pharma for the overseas markets.
Where did Big Pharma come in to because is that a game changer when Big Pharma go, oh, actually, you've done all the work. Can we swoop in and what's the time frame for them to get involved? And would they get involved, given that it's cannabis?
Yes, so Big Pharma are watching. They are Big Brother. They are hanging over all our shoulders right now. We're talking to a bunch of them because, again, given our biotech background, we know all Big Pharma. We've been talking to them for years on other drug products. So they are watching. And as I was saying, I like to joke that, which is true, they have all the top sort of 20 pharma companies that have set up their little European bunker. It's very secretive and clandestine, and they're sitting there assessing the cannabis opportunity, and they are trying to work out whether cannabis is a real therapeutic, whether it can be approved as a drug for various indications, the way Epidiolex has been, or whether it's going to be reduced over time to a recreational / consumer product. And so they're not convinced yet. There are a couple of them that have their toe in their water and they're just working up the courage to jump in. But you have to understand that right now there is one CBD product approved on the planet, and that is Epidiolex. Epidiolex is approved for a rare orphan indication, a childhood epilepsy. So not many people use it per year. And despite that, it was acquired last year for $7.2 billion by large pharma. So you can imagine for any of us, or even all of us in Oz that are fortunate enough to get this phase 3 trial across the line, it will be a feeding frenzy with Big Pharma because we will have de-risked it, we will have proven it works, get it registered, and Big Pharma will take it and run with it through the Americas and Europe and the rest of the world.
ASX code AVE right now, your market cap's what, about 18 mil?
Yeah, I think so. It goes up and down, but it's about, this year with the market crash, we've seen it ticking down and down.
Yeah, look, Listen, Paul, I have to say the poor old biotech market has been smashed. But as I say to people often, and by the way, not financial advice, ladies and gentlemen, but out of crisis comes opportunity. I don't know why, but biotech just seems to be not flavor of the month at the moment. Can you get through this? And how do you see, because I really want our audience to understand the opportunity. And if you can just explain that. Big Pharma and that product that you talked about before being taken out for, what was it, 7.2 billion?
7.2 billion for an orphan indication. Yeah, I mean, approved pharmaceuticals, obviously, very attractive to Big Pharma, and they like to swing in and come in for they want to pay more at the back end rather than take on the risk. I mean, we're talking to them now, and we've been talking about whether we share costs on the phase 3, and it is their overarching preference that they add more zeros onto the licensing deal at the end once you've proven that it works.
So they want to see phase 3 tick. Then that's when they'll come in. Is that correct?
Oh, there will be more than just one of them. The crazy thing about CBD as well, and it's where we see ourselves in a nice little opportunity, is the previous stuff that we've worked on. You do a topical diclofenac. So we've done Voltaren. We rebuilt Voltaren and licensed it, and Nevada sells it. That has one use in life, which is a topical analgesic. The crazy thing about this space with CBD is that people are examining it for everything. So whilst we track down this phase 3 pathway for insomnia, we're talking to someone else about whether they want it for acute pain, someone else whether they want a license for anxiety, whether we do Prader-Willi, whether we do a whole lot of other therapeutic indications. So there's this opportunity to wash, rinse, repeat multiple licensing deals. And so once you've gone through, because our phase 3 as well, like I'm sure the other guys' phase 3s, we're putting some other things in there to give us the future read on further indications beyond sleep that the CBD product could work for. So we get this study out of the way, it'll point us in the direction of the next study and the next study and the study after that. So suddenly one product becomes 2, 3, 4, and they all become individual licensing opportunities that, you can derive revenue from with Big Pharma.
Do you think the market's not recognised I know you haven't been speaking very much for the last probably 6 months or so, but your share price is pretty skinny at the moment. Do you think that they're all waiting to see whether, do you think people don't believe that you'll get through the phase 3? And by the way, running out of time, so I've got to make this a swift question.
Yeah, no, you're very much right. We have been under the radar. It's taken me longer than we hoped to finalize this phase 3 protocol and start talking about it. And there has been a gap in news flow, which is 100% my fault. But yeah, I mean, as we dial up phase 3 and people see the value and the opportunity, we're very comfortable that we recover the lost ground and then some.
Paul, we've run out of time, so you please come back and chat to me in the start of next year when you've got some more news flow coming through, because I know there's a lot. But let's just wrap it up, if we could, today by saying, give me 3 reasons why you think people should be sitting up and taking notice of Avecho Biotechnology right now.
Okay. Number 1 would be phase 3. You invest in biotech for the giant inflection points, and this is where we are. Phase 3 is the biotech giant inflection point. So we will know sooner rather than later, whether the product works for sleep, and that'll be a huge re-rate. The second is that we have non-cannabis products. We're about to, we believe, close some deals on some of those things. They're further validation of the tech, the formulation, the relationships we have with Big Pharma, and they can also contribute to the bottom line. And the last one, as we just touched upon, Big Pharma is watching. We know Big Pharma. We have good relationships with Big Pharma. They are biding their time and they are ready to pounce. And they are going to pounce on something that more resembles biotech and drug development than, normal medicinal cannabis.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Medicinal cannabis. It's not just medicinal cannabis, but also sleep. I wish I was in the phase 3 clinical trial, but I'm not. But it'll be very interesting to see how you go. You sound very confident about it. Big Pharma is watching. They do know Big Pharma as well. And it's been a fascinating chat. Dr. Paul Gavin, CEO of Avecho Technologies. Thanks so much. Biotechnology, I should say. Thank you so much for joining me on Small Caps today.
Thanks, Kerry.